Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Talking Horses, the Thursday edition of Cigar Mile Week. Sarah Al-Badwi and Paul Berterosa kicking things off. We have an exciting card on Saturday, 10 races, 4 graded stakes, but we'll get things started with today's Thursday card. And the racing, it does really look stacked for Saturday. Today's card is okay, definitely some opportunities, but we do have that pick six carryover as well, so that'll certainly help to spice things up. And if you're going to play, of course, you're going to do so through NYRA Bets. You'll sign up, get your $200 deposit match bonus with your promo code MATCH200. Head on over to NYRA Bets to do so. Plenty of wagering opportunities today. That pick six carryover that I mentioned, over $46,000 starting in race 4 today. Make sure to get involved with that. Other opportunities include, of course, the middle pick 4, as we have every day. 3 pick 4s today. We also have a promotion through NYRA Bets. You have to opt in and you can share in the $2,500 hit and split for the late pick 4 today. Definitely don't want to hit and miss out on your share of that extra money. Opt in over at NYRA Bets. And you can check out all the action with America's Day at the Races starting today at 12 p.m. We'll cover the whole card over on FS2. And we can go ahead and get things started with race number 1, where probably one of the bigger scratches of today with 2 redheads coming out, a horse that was going to be heavily favored in this short compact field, and that had won her last start, but she won't be playing today. You scratch into a horse that I have on top with Divine Cross.
Yeah, who I don't fully trust either. So it's always great when your day and your week starts off with your top pick being scratched. You know, maybe it's a good thing. You know, maybe it's not that bad of an omen, but ended up scratching into her. She drops again. She puts the blinkers on today. You know, 2 starts back, she faced much better than she's going to face today for sure. I know she didn't do that much running in that race. And last time out, I think you definitely wanted to be a little bit more forward than she was anyway. She found herself being in between horses and just kind of dropped back. Again, didn't do much running when the real running started there. So, I don't know. I guess on the drop, she's got back races. Her best races do put her in the mix in here. I don't trust her. Then again, I don't really trust anybody in here, but I just landed on her on top because I just have a feeling, as with the early wagering shows, I mean, it's very early anyway, but I just feel like they're going to bet Irish Jackson, and I'm just not too keen on her either.
Right.
So.
It's tough to find somebody that you really can
latch
sink your
onto.
teeth into here. With her, I do feel as though she was against the track last time. That was the day where I did think that you wanted to be inside and more forwardly placed than she was on September 14th. And it was also versus tougher horses. So now she's in for a tag. It's the lowest of her career so far. And I think that with the way that she was against the racetrack, plus the blinkers going on today, you might want to see her get a little bit more engaged in this shorter field. Just the easiest group of horses that she's ever faced.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, busting hot on the inside to me is going to show speed. Probably needed the race and it'll be a little bit tighter. I just don't know if I trust this horse either, even getting out in front of these, you know.
She was favored last time, and she was kind of disappointing.
Yeah, she was pretty bad.
Yeah,
when the real running
it was
started,
not great.
so.
But maybe you say, hey, she hadn't run since February of this year, perhaps needed one off the layoff, and now comes back with that race under her belt. And I like that they're not overly ambitious with her. I mean, they put her at a level like this last time. So perhaps this is ultimately where she belongs. And then Irish Jackson, who you mentioned, just seems like the other horse in here who has had less opportunities to disappoint. But where has this horse been?
Well, not for anything beyond the layoff. I mean, the horse got left at the start in the debut fine and ran. But you have to keep in mind, too, ran down Princess Sony, who just stops on a dime most times. So I really wasn't too crazy about the race that she comes out of, and now she was claimed, and now she goes first time for Orlando Nota and has been gone for the better part of 7 months. So actually 7 months exactly.
Yeah.
So you just wonder where she's been. Just a lot of questions in here, and I just thought Divine Cross had the best races at the end of the day.
I'd agree. Moving on to the second race, I would say a pretty evenly matched group in here, and we can take a look at horses that have faced each other in the past. Suspended Campaign and Sister Linda. With Suspended Campaign able to run that one down, and Suspended Campaign, I respect her. She's legitimate, but she gives herself so much work to do in all of her races coming from so far off of it.
Yeah, she's pace dependent with no early speed, and I know probably people are going to look at this race where she was able to close into that pace, and even the start, 5 starts back, and say, well, she's got a rod back today, so she's going to be bet, and he's won the last 2 times that he's been on her back. But she just has too much work to do in her races, and it seems like she's getting a little bit slower as well. And I mean, I know last time out Run Devil broke out, which in turn made her steady, but I don't know, just no early speed and just hard to, if the pace isn't that fast in here and she's far back, I don't know. I just didn't want her at a short price in here.
And there's no Vegas weekend in here either to make things heat up a little bit more on the front end. And I just couldn't take her over a horse like Run Devil, who was able to beat her pretty fairly last time and likely to be a little bit more forwardly placed.
Yeah, it definitely has the tactical speed, and she's been in verse much tougher, too, in her last three. And you look at a horse like Carol Girl down at Delaware, who's won basically, 5 of her last 7 for the most part. So, again, it's tougher company. And now dropping in class again today for Rudy. It was no match for the winner, held a place spot last time out, ran okay. Again, I would rather take her over a horse like Suspended Campaign, like you said.
Yeah, I agree with you completely there, and I do think that she will be a little bit more forward as we see her finishing second to Freudian in her last start. Got a 63 buyer for that effort as she returned to company that's pretty similar to this, and Suspended Campaign was in that race as well. You've gone to a horse in Distorted View who's just kind of the new face to this group.
New face, new look. Louis Linder's a good trainer. He's brought a horse in on Sunday, too, which Trevor almost won, actually. So I'll take that for what it's worth. Faced much tougher last time out, too. Majestic Creed's won a couple of races in a row with a 79 and 86 buyer. Gunfire Gala Stakes placed as well. Even 2 starts back, the horses were a little bit tougher. I think the drop in here fits this horse, coming in for $25,000, and some of those optional claimers and starter allowance races at Parks do come up tougher than they appear sometimes on paper, even from a speed figure wise. So if this horse is ready from an outside post, I think this horse could be tactically forward in here in a race where if you're banking on Suspended Campaign coming from way off the pace, I would like to book that right now, actually, too. Of course, I just put that horse in the winner's circle, so if I see a rod later, maybe you can laugh at me. But I'm gonna go elsewhere at a price in here, and I think Distorted View fits this level and fits this race with an outside post.
Certainly the other interesting one coming into this group, if you don't trust some of the horses that have been facing each other. And I took a horse that might not be able to really run at all anymore, and Mia Be a Star. But if you go back to her dirt races earlier this year, she has nothing but consistent efforts. Unfortunately, they're not always consistent winning efforts, as she tends to finish second or third, and she is one that comes from off the pace as well. But I do feel as though she was against the track a bit in her last dirt start. That was a day that you wanted to be more forward and towards the inside, and she was far back. And while she did end up heading towards the inside later on in that race, just tougher horses. I mean, Portage and Toned Up are horses that would be extremely short prices in a field like this. So just taking a chance with a horse that I think has those races to go back to, and perhaps some things not going her way over her last couple of races.
Yeah, she just doesn't win much. That's
No,
my
she
biggest.
doesn't.
That's just my biggest problem with
Yeah,
her, is that she
you're
just
absolutely
doesn't
right.
win much at all. And I know it's the biggest drop she's faced in a while, but I mean, not that she's taken a ton of money, but at times she's taken money and she's just disappointed in those starts. It's hard. It was hard for me to make her in here, but
Yeah.
have at it. I mean, like I said, if you have an idea in this race, go for it.
Yeah, she's like a 1 win per year kind of horse.
Yeah,
But
But yeah, almost basically, just
Yeah,
about, yeah.
Exactly. Moving on to the third race today. I have a couple of horses going out for the 6 furlong sprint, horses that are in for a $25,000 tag, and New York breds. And we'll take a look at a horse that I don't know that we're ever going to see an effort like this again, but 6% when he was able to win his last win was back in January, and he ended up getting a 90 buyer speed figure for this effort over a sloppy sealed track. And I don't think it's fair to say that this race lives in isolation, because he has numbers before this and numbers after this that are comparable, but at the same time, over his last 2 races, he is just not running at the same level that he was in the past.
No, he hasn't run well at all in the last couple of starts. But in all fairness to him, I mean, 2 starts back, I just feel like he was wide and against it a little bit. I mean, he ran terrible, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like he was just a little bit too wide in there and just didn't make any kind of impact. Last time out, he was at least a little bit more forward, which I'd like to see in there on the stretch out. But cutting back, I mean, you have to go way back to also find when this horse last sprinted, too. So, I mean, it was August of 2019.
Right.
When he last sprinted. So second in the slop, 80 buyer. Maybe he just runs better in the slop with a little bit higher numbers. I mean, you can't really say that either, contradicting myself too with some of the route races.
You
but
want to make an excuse for him because he has those efforts that would make him easily the horse to beat in here. We just haven't seen them.
yeah, and for what it's worth, I mean, you know, when you look at like the the record for the Canton Marcy, 6 for 60 with routes to sprints with claimers on dirt at NYRA the last 5 years. Numbers are so-so. 6 furlongs, you just wonder where he's going to be tactically in this race. I mean, I guess the discussion has to be with the horse that we have fourth in here with Tommy Gun, because you assume
he's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, that's the horse that's going to go in here, and it, at the very least is going to cut a fair enough pace in here.
Right.
You know, to have, you know, other horses to run at, or at least give aim at. And trainer's 0 for 3, first off the claim with sprinting on dirt the last 5 years at NYRA. So you just wonder, off the claim from Mike Maker, is this horse going to be the same? But this horse has dangerous speed in here.
And he's running right back off
Yeah.
short rest as well, so you have to think that they're running off of Mike Maker training and not an outfit that has the same types of percentages, but certainly a capable one in a spot like this. And he does look, at least on paper, to be a horse that's going to be in front. And I guess then you wonder how much pressure from the outside is a horse like Quick Flash able to apply, who I did end up going with just thinking he would be the outside speed. And Mark Hennig does have good numbers first off the claim. He doesn't claim a ton of horses, but he is 5 for 20 over the past 5 years, so 25%. He has a $3.54 ROI, and on dirt only, he is 3 for 7. And one was 7 to 1, one was 6 to 1, and one was 4 to 1. So these aren't super short prices that he is winning with, and I don't think that a Quick Flash is going to be a great price, but he's going to be probably at least second, third choice in here. So I felt as though he was going to have less pace pressure to deal with than he's had over his last couple of races. But at the same time, he has some races that haven't been quite as good to be competitive here.
Yeah, I also kind of feel like he's a horse that gets forced into making those early moves too. And he gets forced into a position where he's got to duel and make that middle move, or to the 3/4, or to, you know, getting close to the top of the stretch and make that move, that first over move. I mean, today he's got the target. If he's fast enough to go with Tommy Gun. If, you know, Dylan chooses to send, I don't mind him having a target in here, just being on the outside. I don't think he's going to have to make that big of a move, because I don't think he's going to be that far off. And to me, I thought he and Always Charming were the two horses that you really wanted in here.
I'd agree. And Always Charming, just making such a logical drop in class in here. I mean, once upon a time, he was a horse that was beating Win for Gold in the past. And he's just been facing much, much tougher horses in comparison to what he ends up with today. And he doesn't have to be so far off the pace that he's ridiculously compromised either.
No, not at all. And, you know, some people may look at this as a negative, that it's a big drop for him. But once upon a time, he was a $25,000 non-winners of 2 horse and ran in those starts and ran well and won a starter allowance race too. I think 2 back, you could say the rail got good at some point that day, so kind of was against it that race. And last time out, he was under a ride from the start. He just didn't look very comfortable. And he was a big price that day against much better horses. So this is a logical drop. And I think this horse is going to show more speed today, too, and not be too far out of it, and probably be able to make that first run, or be able to take over from a horse like Quick Flash and also from Tommy Gun.
I'm with you. I think those are the two that you want in that spot. Moving on to the 4th race, we have, this is the most I've seen as far as entries in a little while, as far as having our 1-1A, 2-2B, and 3-3X. And of course, that pick 6 carryover does start here. So great to get involved with that. And you'll be getting a couple different horses for the price of one. And I think the horse that you want that isn't a part of these entries is the one that you picked on top, and Life Changer, who we can take a look at in his start on the 10th of June, because anything like this race would make him very competitive.
Yeah, it makes him very tough in here. It's a drop in class. He's coming off of the layoff, but he's run for 40 as well, non-winners of 2 and 1 with a pretty big number as well. I just think he's going to get a good trip in here. He drops, he should be forward. You figure Amundsen's going to the front in here, and you know, if there's maybe any other little bit of pace pressure from a horse like Emerald Forest. And I just think this horse is going to fall into a good trip today. And a repeat of this race off the layoff for the Terra Novas makes this horse very, very tough in here.
Right. I'd agree. I mean, the only concern I have with him, and it's a small one, is just that he has not been able to put together the same type of campaign this year as he has in the past, where he has those multiple layoff lines, and he was able to stay on the racetrack more in the past. But at the same time, he's now 6. He's not running bad races when he is running, and certainly any sort of semblance of his last race makes him a top contender in here. I went to Amundsen, who's just dropping from the Hudson, where he faced the good version of Rotney. And this is his win 2 back, where he was able to defeat Straight Arrow at Saratoga. And Straight Arrow is a horse that then tried the turf in his next start, had a bit of a trip that day. Then he takes his next 2 dirt starts, one with a 101 Beyer and then the Empire Classic with a 95 before trying the Clark at Churchill Downs. And while Amundsen was in the Linda Rice barn at this time, he's a horse that has run well for multiple different outfits in the past, such as Rob Atras, Horacio de Paz, Diodoro. And so I don't really have a big concern with him going to a different barn and being able to run back any semblance of that type of race. And I mean, I don't really view this as a negative drop from that stakes race he was in last time to this level, because he was in for the $45,000 tag 2 back. So it's not as though they're giving up on him in any way.
No, you have to, at this time of the year as well, and the way the races are written sometimes too, they'll bounce around, running for 50, then back in the optional claimer, then running for 45, then you'll see a horse sneak into an allowance, non-winners of 1. So this is the right spot. In the replay we saw, that race was good. He set the pace, he drew off when asked. Last time, like you said, just bit off too much more than he could chew against a really good horse at the time in Rodney, and the good version of that. So this is a drop here. He's a threat to wire this field. And I mean, just for me, I was just hoping, like I said, that Life Changer got around him. But make no mistake about it, Amundsen could win this race.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of like the last race where those are the 2 that you want going into this spot. Moving on to the 5th race, we do agree in here as we have horses competing for a $14,000 tag. And the horse to beat, who is your morning line favorite, is Vintage. And we can take a look at her race at Finger Lakes where she was successful. This is a race where she wasn't that quick out of the gate, and she was able to show that she can sit just off another horse to her inside that's going to be setting the pace. I don't know how aggressive they're going to have to be out of the gate with her. Of course, drawing that inside post position, you think that they'll have to at least move with some intention early on. But I like knowing that she's at least capable of rating, as well as being able to perform on the circuit, because she won at Saratoga 2 starts prior to this one today.
Yeah, they're okay horses that have run okay since that she ran against at Saratoga. This race at Finger Lakes, I like that she ran and finished well to get to Silent Invasion in here. Who's an allowance type of Finger Lakes, knocks around underneath in the exactas. When I looked at this race the first time, I was going to pick against this horse because the only thing that scared me was this horse does have a vet scratch between this race and the entry here. So I'm just wondering what that was about. But the Finger Lakes season is over. This is the right spot for a horse like this to run for 14, a good start to see what you have. This horse is going to be forwardly placed in a race that doesn't have that much dependable speed in here. So I just thought from the inside post, this horse could be up on the leader running in second and just make one run in here. And the horse figures, and the horses run well, as you said, on this circuit. So I think if this horse a shot, who's probably going to be the favorite in here.
Right, and I don't know that we're going to see a 73 Beyer again from her. I don't know that that's a number that is really reliable to be repeated from her, but I don't think she needs it. I don't think she even necessarily needs in the mids to high 60s, because when you look around, nobody else has really touched that kind of figure recently.
Yeah, I think she could regress and probably still win in here. I really wish I could make a stronger case for the horse on the outside, just the Nyquist, because this is a horse I've always liked and got wired last time and kind of ended up in between horses and dropped back, and then Maddie got to work on her and got outside, and she's done this 3 times in a row where she just drops back on the turn and then she kind of re-engages and runs again. Maybe she's closer today from an outside post with a little bit slower pace going on. I'm just not sure, but I don't know. I just look at this race, and from a figure standpoint, I just feel like even if the 1 regresses, the 8's going to have to find her better races, which she's capable of doing. She's run races in the 60s before that were okay sprinting. Just want to see it longer.
Right, exactly. And we're taking a look at both her and Axl Rose running behind Angela's Party Girl, who did then return versus some tougher company, stepping up to the $35,000 level and actually improved a little bit, going from a 68 to a 71 Beyer. So facing a good horse who was dropping in class then and stretching out in distance, but at the same time, I feel as though Vintage would need to not run her race in order for either of those 2 to be successful.
Yeah, and I just feel like Vintage is a better horse than Axl Rose.
Right.
With all things considered, just on the square, just watching their races. So, and, if you want to make an excuse for Axl Rose and say she chased and got tired and she was, first off the layup, I mean, you could make that, but where's her faster races? The race at Monmouth was her faster race, and that race still doesn't even beat a Vintage race.
I agree with you there. All right, we'll take a quick break here from our sponsor at Saratoga Water and be right back.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Back with you on Talking Horses, Sarah Badwi and Paul Verderosa. And getting into the sixth race today, we have 2-year-olds. And I think the big question you have to ask yourself is, what do you do with the Brad Cox entrant, Iridescent? I saw that you picked second. I couldn't get past this one. We'll take a look at his maiden breaking score over at Ellis. And I just like that this was a horse that was able to rate just off the pace, win from a wide post at a track that tended to favor inside speed most days, and then just facing better horses in his last dirt start as well.
Yeah, and in this race, when he put it together at the top of the stretch, he looked good doing so. Like, he got in gear and he found another gear here and got up to win on, as you said, what Ellis usually turns out to be a speed favoring track on the inside most days. So ran well in here. Last time out, decent horses, obviously, that he ran against. The numbers are going in the right direction. I mean, he's the horse to beat in here for sure. Drops, he's well offered, for the tag. But I just was going to take one little shot against him in here, shipping in first here, time in New York, and just was going to take a shot against him. What's going to be a short price. But I make no mistake about it, I'll be using him in any kind of wager.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. It's fair to ask questions about what he's doing here, especially with the kind of horses he was running against last time, because if you look at a horse like Honor Marie, he was able to upset the Kentucky Jockey Club at his next start and improved. The third place finisher, Just Steel, he came back and improved in upsetting a stakes race. So he's been keeping good company, and you have to wonder, why is he in a spot like this? At the same time, however, this is a trainer that has a lot of horses, and if some of them aren't going to be the best 3-year-olds come next year, you just have to spot them in a logical place in order for them to be successful. With Two's a Crowd, there's things to like. What did you like about this one?
Traveled like a winner, back. I mean, every step of the way, and it's good tactical speed, should be forward in here. Last time out, faced much better in the Sleepy Hollow. I think the cutback to 6.5 is probably what this horse wants to do, as opposed to going the mile. For me, the numbers have been going in the right direction. Still needs to take one more step forward to probably win this race. Arad gets back aboard today, and I think this horse is going to be probably close, probably sitting second, maybe even a little bit faster to be on the lead in here if they want to send.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to look at a race like the Sleepy Hollow, where he was just overmatched last time and also stretching out in distance over a muddy sealed track. So perhaps some things that he didn't appreciate. This is a spot where he could be successful today if he fits at a level like this and with that cut back in distance. And I guess the other horse to talk about in here is the outside one for the Dutrow Barn, who looked very professional when he was able to break his maiden last time. That was for a $40,000 tag, but I thought that was a pretty good effort, able to rally towards the inside and then switch out and make up some good ground.
Yeah, improved greatly when he went into the Dutrow Barn for sure. And the drop clearly worked for that horse, got a nice trip, ran well. This is the next logical step in here. You know, they're not offering the horse for a tag, so that's always good that the horse is protected. Does have that outside post to be able to stalk in here. So we'll see what happens. I mean, to me, I just felt like 3s and 4s were the horse. I'm sure the 6 can improve, the 7 can improve if the 7 runs the same race as last time. That horse is going to be tough in here, but just giving a little look to the 3 and the 4. And listen, I know it's a long shot, but the 5 Running Lucky actually looked like a winner every step of the way last time out. I don't know where that, I don't know where that race came from. I know it wasn't the best field, found the right field, put it all together, but that horse ran well. You got to assume same thing again. Matty Martin's aboard. You assume that the tactics are going to be the same. They're going to send in here. So it'll be interesting to see how this race plays out and if this horse is faster than a horse like Two's a Crowd, if Two's a Crowd wants to lead, or if Iridescent finds a little more speed.
I agree. I think that this is a situation where you have to kind of wonder where that big step up in numbers came with Running Lucky. But I mean, was second at a huge price, went in for a tag, 2 back as well. So big improvement in terms of buyers, but was showing some ability and improvement overall. So I think an interesting long shot to at least consider underneath somewhere. Moving on to the 7th race, this is an interesting group of horses because I think you just have to look at both outside horses and wonder, can they really run anymore?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of thinking the question is more of Big Engine than the question is of Salto de Tigre, because I just feel like Salto de Tigre has a couple of sprint races you can go back to way back when at Santa Anita that were good. I just feel like even though a horse like Big Island, you know, can still probably get to the lead early and be tough if this horse breaks today and drops again. And I know there were better horses, Mariachi and Ocean's Reserve and Defusky Island, but the races were just not good. They've gotten progressively worse every single time, even on the drop. So this other drop scares me again. This horse can win, but this horse is going to probably win without me today because I just feel like I don't know where the form has gone, and maybe this horse just can't run anymore.
He's going to be a short price, but we could take a look at one of his races that would easily make him a winner in here when he was second to the very good in-form version of Defusky Island a couple starts ago for him back in June. And I mean, ever since then, we see him face better horses, but he's steadily declining. And then the effort last time, he was in for a $20,000 tag and just really did not offer much. I mean, he had some forward position and kind of backtracked a little bit, but this is a spot where if he's not successful today, he really just cannot run anymore.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes with older horses, and they go south quickly. You know, the form starts to deteriorate, and it could be just a case of that happening to this horse. I mean, you know, that was a good race that we saw. Then the claim was voided at Saratoga. That race was okay, just kind of chased. And then after that, it's like the bottom fell out in the 2 starts after. And I think what bothered me more, too, was just running bad off the drop. And now is dropping one more time. And it's not like there's terrible horses in here, because there's a couple of horses in here that aren't bad. I mean, they're not the caliber that this horse has been facing, but I don't know. I mean, if this horse wins, this horse is probably going to win without me today. But, I mean, what do you do?
It's a big decision
Yeah,
to make
what do
within
you
your
do?
pick 6 sequence, because if you rely completely, you have to find somebody else along the way that at least helps your ticket a little bit. But you and I both went to the alternative, which is Salto de Tigre, who I felt was one of the more consistent David Jacobson types, because he would run a similar number versus other horses in the past at different class levels and over different distances as well. And he's not a winning type, but he was always kind of hitting the board and making his run and running his race at least. And while James Farrar does not have great numbers first off the claim, the barn is running really well right now. Over the past 2 months, he's 4 for 13 with 8 of them hitting the board. And while, like I said, those first off the claim numbers, they're not great, I think that you have to pay attention to what the barn is doing right now. And they're sending out very live horses.
Yeah, and I just thought when you put all of that together, and he's got faster races going along. He's won at 7/8 way back when. He's run okay, you know, otherwise. I just thought he was the alternative in here, and he's not going to be the favorite. So I was looking against horses like Big Engine and Brazilian Air, who's taking a huge drop, but I think is going to be bet more off of the turf form.
Exactly. I mean, he's a turf horse, but he's never been at a level like this, really on either surface at any time lately. And then you have a horse in Pit Boss who's kind of just the horse for this level, but he doesn't really win either.
No, and for what it's worth, Wayne is 2 for 8. Wayne Potts with a $1.83 ROI, 5 in the money, first off the claim, going dirt route to sprint at Naira the last 5 years. And Maybe this horse is a little bit more forward in here today, sprinting. I mean, because he's been up on 23 paces when he's been going the mile. I don't know. Cuts back, has a little bit of speed. For me, it was 8s and 2s and then question marks.
Yeah, lots of questions
After that.
overall within the 7th race. Getting to our 8th and featured race today, a scratch of a horse that would have taken some money in McCullen, who was set to come back for the Pletcher Barn. He won't be playing today, but still a pretty contentious field. And I think leading contender, of course, makes a lot of sense in here, a horse that is going out for the Chad Brown Barn. And we can take a look at his second place finish at Saratoga, and he's running behind a horse in Film Star, who came back to eventually run the second in the Woodward to Zandon and won his start right after this. Kind of going the wrong way lately, but at this time, facing a very good horse.
Yeah, Film Star was good then. Even last time out over at Keeneland, ran well against Escapologist, and who just missed against Command Performance.
Yeah,
so
and
the races are good. I don't think the stretch out's going to bother this horse to a mile and 3/16 either. He's got that nice loping stride at the end of races. He should get a nice trip in here. He's still got room to improve and should be forwardly placed inside or a couple of lengths out of it in a race where I just think that he probably now is probably the best horse in the race.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
That's left in here and the horse to beat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you might look at the 2 seconds at short prices and perhaps think that he's been a little bit disappointing, but you look at the company that he's been keeping, and you mentioned running second to Escapologist, who came back to run second to Command Performance. Even the 3rd place finisher of that race, Grand Aspen, returned to win an off-the-turf race and improved his Beyer speed figure as well. So he's been keeping some excellent company over the past couple of races. And you also know that he can break from the inside and sit in behind horses, as he did 2 starts ago at Saratoga. So it certainly makes a lot of sense. I just went with one small shot against with Suerte, who has been running some good races lately and projects to be the outside speed in a spot where I feel as though, yes, it was a blanket finish in his start 2 back, but even when he was second last time to Quality Chic, that was a race where there was a lot of speed going on in there. He was forward. He was able to still be game and defeat that day. So I took a small shot with him. I think the other horse that is a little bit of a question mark in here is Olympic Dreams, because if he runs his good race where he was able to defeat Unoho, who's very game that day, he has a shot, but his last efforts haven't been quite as good.
I just wonder if last time it was the off-going. I mean, it seems like he hasn't run. He's been beaten double-digit lengths in every off-track race that he's had. So I just wonder if the off-track is just not to his suiting. 2 back against leading contender. I mean, I guess you can make the case Film Star ran well. Leading contender was second that day. So you wonder, just maybe you just didn't get the right trip that day at Saratoga, but it just seems like, the Empire Classic may have been a little bit over his head as well that day. I know he ran well in the commentator, but again, he was on an off track, and I just don't think the off tracks are his favorite surfaces. So it was a lot of 1s and 7s for me. I just hope he was not going in the wrong direction in his last 2. I just hope it was the off track and he runs back to one of his better races, because if he runs back to one of his better races, he's going to be tough in here against this group.
Exactly, and he was able to put some Beyers in the 90s back to back, so it's not as though that 197 was a complete anomaly from his prior form.
No, it wasn't a fluke. It actually, from his debut race, he just kept getting better and better and better every start until that race at Saratoga going the mile and 1/8 when he ran behind Film Star and leading contender. Then the numbers have kind of paired off. At least the number last time, I know it was a terrible race and I know it was off track, at least it was a 76. It wasn't like a 40, It wasn't like you completely dove off of a cliff. So for me, it was 1s and 7s. And with Suerte, like you said, he's a horse who's game to the wire, and he's backed up his starts. So maybe he can get out and be out there with a horse like Mystical Curlin, and he's going to be game. So he probably can run his race too. 1s and 7s for me, and then a couple underneath.
Yeah, fun race in the 8th. And then we'll close things out in the 9th, as we often do, with a maiden claiming race for the 2-year-olds. This one going 6.5 furlongs. What did you do here?
I kind of copped out. Went to Crown the Saint by the time we got here. I don't think this horse, like the off-going last time out and 2 starts out against the main special weight 2 in the off-going, I don't think was this horse's cup of tea either up at Saratoga. The debut race I thought was a good race against a horse that had experience that day. Ran second, takes the blinkers off today. Arad sticks around, drops again, gets a fast track, and I just thought in this race, I thought this horse was probably going to end up being best. I know this horse is going to be favored in here, but I mean, I guess they're going to bet Wild Jamie a little bit, who I like as well, who was green in that debut over at the Meadowlands. Definitely had to alter course in there, and the Dam was a dirt sprinter. So, and Summer's coming, won an optional claimer at Gulfstream on the synthetic. So I thought that race was okay. I just really couldn't make much of a case for many other horses. Your horse is dropping, so I guess, you know, an Irish Gent was stakes place. So
Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton to recommend with One Dream other than the drop in class. The lone dirt start wasn't an off-the-turf race at the maiden special weight level. Did run for purse money only that day. There were expectations for this horse in the beginning. I mean, he sold for $200,000 as a yearling, a son of Munnings, and that's a very dirt sprint type of family. And so I just feel as though perhaps they once thought something of him and it hasn't quite panned out, so they're putting him in at a level where he can be competitive, but he hasn't shown much in either of his races so far. With Crown That Saint, that's a horse that's taken some money in all of his starts so far, regardless of level, and did finish second, like you mentioned, in one of those restricted races at Saratoga. Gets Ira out of board today. I have no problems with this horse. This horse is a very likely winner in here. My Man Woody, a little bit interesting, dropping a little bit, did run third to Badlands Ruler, who's a horse that scratched, that would have been running today earlier on in the card. But other than that, there just isn't much to go on.
no, and My Man Woody, I mean, so the figure was fine. I mean, when you look at the level of these horses, got a 44, so that actually makes this horse competitive in here. But it's been like a forward position the last two, and then when the real running starts, this horse loses ground in the stretch every race, and that's a no-no for me. When you're backing up when the real running starts, I just kind of feel like, you know.
It's not a good sign.
Yeah, it's not a good sign at all. I mean, I don't really have much to say about it. Although
Right.
I wonder, though, I mean, obviously Solo in Paris is probably going to be on the lead again in here, so you just wonder if My Man Woody's going to end up being outside of that horse and maybe sitting in like a second or third spot again, like this horse is a couple of lengths off the lead, and we'll see what happens. I mean, maybe he doesn't back up today based on the company he's facing, but when you lose Stretch in the lane, you lose me as well.
That's
Picking
a
that horse
fair
on top.
point. All right, well, that wraps things up for us. We'll take a look at plenty of action coming up today, and you'll want to get caught up and be playing through NyraBets. Head on over to nyrabets.com, get that $200 deposit match sign-up bonus with the promo code MATCH200. Make sure to play all of the races today through NyraBets. We, of course, have that pick six carryover, as we mentioned, starting in race number 4, over $46,000 in the carryover as the sequence went unsolved last Sunday. Middle pick 4, as always, as well as the early and late pick 4. We do have a hit and split for today's late pick 4, $2,500. Make sure to opt in over at NyraBets to be eligible for sharing in that money. And then all of our coverage today on FS2 starting in about 15 minutes. So coming right up at 12 p.m. Paul, this was fun. We'll be spending a lot of time together in December, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think you're stuck with me like 7 or 8 times, I think, in the month of
Lots of
December.
time.
So yeah, so we've got a lot of us together in
Exactly,
December.
but we
yeah.
only had special guest appearances on
Yeah.
occasion, so this will be fun. But thanks for tuning in, and good luck today.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.